Karen thought, paper could move a river. Then nature answered, Denise Whitaker thought a $600 HOA fee would scare me into backing down. I wasn't even in her HOA. And that river wall on my ranch was the only thing keeping Silver Fork from cutting straight through her subdivision. She called the county, smiled like she had already won, and told them my wall was illegal. I didn't yell. I opened my files. And if you want more stories where quiet landowners stand their ground the right way, subscribe and stay with me. Why would an HOA dare fine a rancher over a river they did not own? That was the question sitting in my head the morning I found the county notice zip-tied to my front gate, snapping in the Colorado wind like it was proud of itself. White paper, orange border, black county seal. Behind it, my pasture rolled down toward Silver Fork River, where a line of old cottonwoods leaned over the water like men listening to a secret. My name is Caleb Morgan. I own 240 acres outside Mesa Ridge, Colorado. My father ran cattle here. His father cut hay here. And long before Aspen Creek Meadows HOA built its pretty timber houses downstream, Silver Fork had already decided where it wanted to go. The only reason it did not run through their clubhouse was the old river wall on my land. It was not fancy. Just a low stone and earth diversion wall running along the bend, half buried in grass, patched by 3 generations of Morgan hands. To Denise Whitaker, president of Aspen Creek Meadows HOA, it was an eyesore. To me, it was the reason 96 homes stayed dry every spring. The trouble started with an envelope. It came 2 weeks earlier, tucked into my mailbox between a feed bill and a seed catalog. Aspen Creek Meadows HOA letterhead. My name typed wrong at the top. The amount was typed right in bold, $600. Community drainage fee. I read it twice at the kitchen table, with my late wife Annie's blue coffee mug sitting across from me, empty like it had been for 4 years. The letter claimed my ranch benefited from HOA-managed river infrastructure and therefore owed an annual fee to support shared waterway maintenance. I laughed once, not because it was funny. I was not in their HOA. My ranch did not touch their common areas. Their subdivision sat downstream from my river wall and my flood easement. If anyone was benefiting from water infrastructure, it was Denise Whitaker's people sleeping easy under roofs built in a basin Silver Fork used to claim every other spring. I wrote one sentence across the bill. Not a member, not your river. Then I mailed it back. That should have ended it. It did not. The next time I saw Denise, she was standing at the edge of my gate in cream slacks and sunglasses big enough to hide a lie. Her white SUV idled behind her, clean as a showroom floor, its tires throwing dust over my cattle guard. Mr. Morgan, she said, holding another copy of the invoice like a summons. You are refusing a lawful community assessment. I stayed on my side of the gate. Denise, your community ends at the south fence line. My land starts here. Her smile tightened. Water doesn't respect fences. No, I said. But deeds do. She looked past me toward the river bend. Her eyes found the old wall. That obstruction is altering natural drainage. That obstruction has been there longer than every house in your HOA. Then maybe it's time the county looked at it. There it was. Not neighbor talk. Not a fee dispute. A threat dressed up as civic concern. I folded my arms over the top rail. You called the county over $600? She stepped closer, lowering her voice like she wanted me to feel small. You rural men always think history gives you permission. It doesn't. This community has rights. I looked downriver, where the afternoon sun flashed against Silver Fork. The water looked calm from the gate. It always did, until snowmelt came out of the high country, and the whole valley remembered gravity. You should be careful what you ask the county to touch, I said. Denise gave a short laugh. Is that supposed to scare me? No, it's supposed to save you. Her face went still for half a second. Then she turned, got in her SUV, and drove off too fast, leaving a brown cloud hanging between us. 5 days later, the county notice showed up on my gate. Inspection pending. Alleged unlawful river obstruction. Complaint filed by Aspen Creek Meadows Homeowners Association. I stood there a long while, one hand on the gate latch, reading the words while the paper snapped and curled. A meadowlark called from the fence post. Down below, Silver Fork slid around the bend and pressed softly against the old wall, patient as a loaded gun. I did not tear the notice down. I took out my phone and photographed it. Then I photographed the gate, the road, the river bend, the wall, and the fresh tire tracks near the lower pasture where somebody had driven close enough to break one of my survey stakes. Only after that did I touch the paper. The wind pulled at it. The zip tie creaked. I heard my father's voice then, low and worn, the way he sounded when he walked me along that bend as a boy after the 1984 runoff. Water remembers where it belongs, Caleb. You can argue with men, you can argue with paper, but never argue with water. I looked downstream toward the roofs of Aspen Creek Meadows, bright and expensive under the sun. Denise thought this was about a $600 fee. So why had she brought the county? I found out the next morning when a white county truck rolled up my gravel road at 8:17 sharp. It stopped short of the cattle guard, and a man in a tan jacket stepped out with a clipboard tucked under one arm. The county seal was stitched on his chest. He looked tired before he even reached the gate. "Mr. Morgan," he called. "That's me. Evan Pritchard, County Compliance Office. We received a formal complaint regarding an unpermitted river obstruction on your property." I glanced past him at the notice still twisting on the gate. "You mean the wall. That's what the complaint calls it. What does the county call it?" He hesitated. That was the first crack. A man who knows exactly what he is looking at does not hesitate. "I'm here for visual inspection only," he said. "No enforcement today." Before I could answer, dust lifted behind his truck. Denise Whitaker's white SUV came up the road like she had been waiting around the bend for her entrance. She parked behind the county truck, stepped out in a blue blazer, and walked toward us with that clean, polished confidence people get when they believe the paperwork is already on their sit. "Good," she said. "You're here." Evan turned. "Mrs. Whitaker, this is private property. I didn't ask you to attend the inspection. I'm the reporting party. I have a right to observe." "You have a right to stand on the road," I said. "Not inside my gate." Her eyes cut to me. Still hostile, I see. I pulled my phone out and started recording. Not waving it. Not making a scene. Just holding it low where the camera could see the gate, the county truck, Denise, and the river road beyond her shoulder. Denise noticed. "Are you recording me?" "I record official conversations on my land." "This is exactly the attitude I reported," she said, turning toward Evan. "He intimidates anyone who questions him." Evan looked uncomfortable. "Let's keep this simple. Mr. Morgan, may I view the riverbank from the gate?" "You can view it from here," I said. "If you want to step onto the ranch, I'll need a written inspection request and the statute you're entering under." Denise laughed under her breath. "Unbelievable." "No," I said. "Careful." That word landed harder than I expected. Evan looked up from his clipboard. Denise's mouth tightened. Down near the bend, Silver Fork moved quietly against the stone wall. From the road, it looked like an old ranch improvement, nothing more than rock, dirt, willow roots, and time. But I saw what my father had taught me to see: the angle of the current, the pressure line under the bank, the way the water wanted to push east and could not. Evan took 3 photos from the road. Denise stepped closer to the gate and pointed. That is the obstruction. It forces runoff toward Aspen Creek Meadows. No, I said. It keeps runoff away from Aspen Creek Meadows. She turned with a smile meant for the county officer, not me. That's his opinion. It's not an opinion. She raised her phone. The HOA has voted to request county intervention. We have residents concerned about safety, mosquito pooling, erosion, and loss of natural river access. Natural river access? I repeated. Your subdivision sits on the old channel. Her smile dropped. Only for a second. Then she recovered. That's absurd. Evan lowered his clipboard. Old channel? I looked at him. There are maps. Denise cut in fast. Maps from when? 1900? This community was engineered and approved in 2014. We have modern drainage plans. And did those plans include my flood easement? Neither of them answered. A sheriff's cruiser appeared before the silence could settle. Tom Alvarez got out slow, one hand resting on his belt, his hat pulled low against the wind. He was a practical man, not dramatic, and his eyes went straight to Denise before they came to me. Morning, Caleb. Sheriff? Denise stepped toward him. Sheriff, thank God. I told dispatch Mr. Morgan was becoming aggressive with county personnel. Tom looked at Evan. That true? Evan shifted his weight. No, sir. He's been calm. Denise's face flushed. He's recording us. Colorado is a one-party consent state in most circumstances, Tom said. And this is his gate. For the first time that morning, power moved. Not far. But enough. I opened my phone gallery and showed Tom the fresh photos from yesterday. The broken survey stake near the lower pasture. The tire tracks pressed into my grass. The county notice. Denise's SUV at my gate. Somebody drove down near the river before the complaint, I said. My lower boundary marker is snapped. Tom looked at the image, then at Denise's SUV, then at Denise. You been past this gate? She lifted her chin. The HOA had to document a community hazard. That wasn't my question. Her jaw worked once. I stood where I needed to stand. Tom closed his notebook slowly. Mrs. Whitaker, don't step onto this ranch again without permission or a court order. This is not just his ranch, she snapped. This is a shared watershed. No, Tom said. It's private land in a watershed. Those are different things. Evan cleared his throat. Mr. Morgan, I'll file that I performed a roadside visual inspection. The county may request further documentation. You'll have it, I said. Denise turned back to me, voice low enough that only the three of us near the gate could hear it. You should have paid the $600. I looked at the snapped survey stake on my phone, then at the river behind her. No, I said. You should have asked what that wall does. By sundown, I was inside my house with the lights off in the kitchen and the steel filing cabinet open beside the table. Annie's blue mug sat near my elbow. I moved past grazing leases, tax records, and old cattle sale receipts until my hand found the red folder my father had labeled in block letters. 1965 Flood Easement, Silver Fork Bend. The paper inside was yellowed but clean. County signature, surveyor stamp, recorded book, and page number. It authorized my grandfather and the county to build and maintain a stone diversion wall along the bend after the spring flood of 1965 tore through the old channel. The old channel now ran under Aspen Creek Meadows. I set the document flat on the table and took a photograph. Then I called Mason Reed. He answered on the third ring. Caleb? Mason, I said. The HOA just complained to the county about the flood wall. He was quiet for half a breath. Then he said, Tell me you still have the easement. I looked at the document under my hand. I'm looking at it. Good, Mason said. Then the real question is not whether the wall is legal. The real question is why Denise Whitaker wants it inspected when she should be praying it stays exactly where it is. I stayed quiet, my palm flat on the 1965 easement like I was holding down something alive. Mason heard the silence. Caleb, listen to me. Don't call Denise. Don't write her angry. Don't walk into the county office breathing fire. Build the file first. I already started. Good. Build it like you're going to court. Because people who call the county over private land usually want a public record they can twist later. That sentence settled hard. After we hung up, I left the kitchen light on and started pulling every map I owned. Deeds first, then water rights notes, then the old FEMA floodplain sheets folded into long blue rectangles. Annie used to hate those maps spread across the table because they pushed dinner onto the counter, but she never told me to put them away. She would set coffee down beside me and say, "You read rivers like other men read newspapers." Her mug sat across from me now, chipped at the handle, empty. I moved it carefully away from the paper. By midnight, the kitchen table was covered in proof. My deed showed the ranch boundary running along the west bend of Silver Fork. The 1978 county survey marked the diversion wall as existing flood infrastructure. The FEMA map from 1999 shaded Aspen Creek Meadows' future lots in pale blue, long before the first foundation was poured. A handwritten note from my father, tucked into the file, pointed to the old channel and said only one thing: "Do not let them forget this line." I did not sleep much. At first light, I drove the lower pasture in my pickup with the heater blowing dust off the dashboard. The river road was still rutted from Denise's tires. I stopped at the broken survey stake, drove a new wooden marker beside it, and photographed both. Then I walked the bend. The wall did not look like much to people who did not understand water. A low, rough-backed spine of stone and packed earth, grass growing through cracks, willow roots gripping it from below. But the current told the truth. It hit that wall, slowed, bent south, and slid away from the subdivision. Without it, Silver Fork would look east. I took video from 3 angles: upstream, downstream, across the old channel. I narrated every shot in a flat voice with the date and time. Not for drama, for court. At 9:30, I drove into Mesa Ridge and parked outside the county records office. The clerk, a thin woman named Carla with silver glasses, knew me from property tax season. "Morning, Caleb. Need copies?" "Certified ones." Her eyebrows lifted. "That kind of morning?" "That kind." I gave her the book and page number from the 1965 easement. She disappeared into the back and returned with the official record, stamped and sealed. The document was clearer than my old copy. It named the Morgan Ranch, the county board, and the purpose in language nobody could shrug off: flood diversion and downstream protection. Carla read the line over the counter and looked up. Downstream protection from what? From the river doing what it used to do. She slid me the certified copy. "You think this is about that HOA?" "I think they want it to be." From the records office, I walked across the street to the county planning department and requested the original Aspen Creek Meadows subdivision file. That took longer. A younger clerk brought out 3 boxes and a digital drive. I sat at a public terminal and started reading. There it was in the drainage appendix: conditional dry basin. The developer's engineer had written that phrase in 2013. Aspen Creek Meadows was approved on the assumption that upstream flood controls remained functional and unchanged. My wall was not named directly, but its location was shown in a small contour map on page 47, marked as existing upstream diversion feature. I stared at that phrase until the screen blurred. Existing upstream diversion feature. Denise wanted inspected what her own subdivision approval depended on. I printed the page, then another, then the drainage appendix, then the approval conditions. I paid for certified copies and put them in a new folder on the passenger seat. On my way home, Mason called. "You find anything?" Enough to make me nervous. Good nervous or bad nervous? The kind where the HOA either didn't read its own subdivision file or somebody did and decided the wall was useful to attack. Mason exhaled. Then we keep digging. Who benefits if that wall gets declared a problem? I looked through the windshield at the mountains, still carrying snow on their shoulders. I don't know yet, but I knew the $600 was dead now. It had been dead from the start. That evening, I spread the new records beside Annie's mug and started a clean binder. On the cover, I wrote in black marker, Aspen Creek/Silver Fork Wall/County Complaint. Then I opened to the first page and placed the 1965 easement on top. A quiet man with old maps does not look dangerous from the road. Denise had seen a widower rancher with a wooden gate and a weathered pickup. She had not seen the records. She had not seen my father's notes. She had not seen the county's own words buried on page 47. I turned that page over one more time. Existing upstream diversion feature. If that was in the county file, then why was the county acting like the wall was a mystery? And who had told Denise to make it one? The answer did not come from Denise. It came from the Secretary of State's website at 11:42 that night, while the house was dark except for the glow of my laptop and the small lamp Annie used to read under. Mason had told me to search names, not accusations, so I typed Whitaker first. Denise Whitaker gave me nothing useful. HOA minutes, charity luncheon photos, a few county comments about responsible growth. Then I typed Brent Whitaker. That one opened a door. High Meadow Development, LLC, registered 3 months earlier. Principal address. The same house Denise lived in at Aspen Creek Meadows. Managing member Brent Whitaker. Secondary contact. A land broker out of Grand Junction I did not know. I stared at the screen until the words stopped looking like words. Then I clicked the filings. The company purpose was vague. Rural residential development, water-adjacent recreation, land acquisition. Vague enough to hide in, clear enough to smell. I sent the file to Mason. He called back in less than 5 minutes. "Caleb," he said, "tell me Brent isn't married to Denise." "He is." Then the $600 fee just got interesting. By morning, Mason had pulled county inquiry records that I could not access online. Brent's company had asked about 12 luxury river cabins on low acreage east of Aspen Creek Meadows, right beside the old channel. The land was cheap because it was marked seasonal floodplain. Too risky for development. Too wet for a lender. Too dangerous for insurance. Unless somebody could argue, the maps were wrong. Mason's voice was flat when he explained it. If they can blame your wall for the drainage designation, they can claim the basin is artificially wet. Remove or weaken the wall, get a new study, push for reclassification. Then Brent buys low before the county catches up. I looked out the kitchen window toward the river trees. So Denise doesn't want the wall gone because it hurts the HOA. "No," Mason said. "She may want it gone because the wall proves the land is supposed to flood." That was the first moment anger got through my ribs. Not loud anger. Not the kind that makes a man throw things. The kind that makes him sit very still and read every line twice. At noon, I drove to Ruth Bell's place. Ruth lived north of me on 80 acres of dry pasture and stubborn memory. She was 72, widowed twice, and could tell you which spring floods took which fence posts going back before I was born. Her red barn leaned a little into the wind, but it had outlasted 3 bankers and 1 tornado warning. She opened the door before I knocked. "Saw Denise at your gate," she said. "Then you know why I'm here." She stepped aside. Coffee's hot. I laid the maps on her table, the 1965 easement, the old channel line, the Aspen Creek Meadows drainage appendix. Ruth did not rush. She put on glasses, followed the blue marks with one crooked finger, then stopped where the clubhouse now sat. That's where the water crossed in '65, she said. You remember it? I remember your father standing waist-deep in mud with a shovel while the county men argued. I remember cattle floating against the Poulin fence. I remember that river cutting straight east like it had somewhere to be. I pointed to the wall. After they built this, did it hold? She looked at me over the glasses. Caleb, before your father held that bend, the river ran right through where their clubhouse stands. Hearing it from Ruth made the room feel smaller. She pushed the map back toward me. That HOA woman know this? She should. That's not what I asked. I folded the easement carefully. I think she knows enough to be dangerous and not enough to be afraid. Ruth stood, walked to a narrow cabinet beside the stove, and pulled out a yellow envelope. She set it on the table like it had weight. Your daddy gave me copies after the '84 runoff, she said. Said if anyone ever tried to pretend that wall was just rocks, I should give this to you. Inside were photographs, black and white shots from 1965. Men in coats standing near a washed-out channel, a county grader sinking to its axle. Water spread across the valley floor exactly where Aspen Creek Meadows now had split-rail fences, paved walking trails, and a clubhouse with river-view windows. The last photo showed my father as a young man, mud to his knees, one hand on the first course of stone. On the back, in his handwriting, were 5 words. This is what saves them. My throat tightened once. I did not let it go further. Ruth touched the edge of the photo. He knew people forget what they didn't suffer through. On my way back home, Denise called. I let it ring twice before answering. Mr. Morgan, she said, bright and sharp. I wanted to inform you the HOA will be submitting supplemental documentation to the county before the drainage hearing. What documentation? Expert concerns regarding your obstruction. Paid by who? There was a pause so small most people would miss it. By parties concerned for community safety. Denise, I said, does High Meadow Development LLC sound familiar? Silence. Then her voice came back colder. I would advise you not to make defamatory accusations. I asked a question, and I'm ending this call. She hung up. I sat in my truck at the edge of my pasture, phone still in my hand, watching Silver Fork turn against the old wall. The river slid south, quiet and obedient for now. Mason was right. This was never about $600. It was about making the wall look guilty so the floodplain could look innocent. And if the county believed Denise, they were not just opening a legal fight. They were opening the river. The drainage hearing was held the following Thursday in a county meeting room that smelled like old coffee and printer toner. I arrived with one binder, one folder of certified maps, and Mason Reed beside me in a dark sport coat that had seen more courtrooms than weddings. Denise arrived with an audience. HOA residents filled 2 rows behind her, neat jackets, folded arms, whispering like I had personally flooded their basements already. Brent Whitaker sat near the aisle, phone in hand, pretending not to watch me. At the front of the room stood a man I had never met. Silver tie, polished shoes, a pointer tucked under one arm. That's their consultant, Mason murmured. Grant Hollis. Paid through a third-party invoice. High Meadow? Not directly, but close enough to smell. The county board called the matter at 9:05. Denise stood first. She walked to the microphone with a stack of color charts and the calm rhythm of a woman who had practiced in a mirror. Behind her, a blown-up photo showed my river wall from a bad angle, cropped tight so it looked like a crude pile of rocks choking the river. This is not about personal conflict, Denise said. This is about responsible water stewardship. Mr. Morgan has refused a modest $600 community drainage contribution while maintaining an outdated obstruction that affects every homeowner downstream. A few HOA residents nodded. She clicked to the next slide. Children on the Aspen Creek walking trail, the clubhouse lawn, a blue graphic of a river that looked clean, friendly, and completely fictional. We are asking the county to restore natural flow and protect our community from one landowner's private decision-making. Mason wrote one word on his legal pad. Performance. Grant Hollis took the microphone next. He called my wall unpermitted legacy infrastructure. He said it likely altered drainage patterns. He said removal of a controlled section would improve river function and allow updated hydrological assessment. He did not mention the 1965 easement. He did not mention the county's own subdivision approval. He did not say Old Channel once. When my turn came, the room shifted. People expected anger. Maybe they wanted it. A red-faced rancher would have made Denise's story easier to believe. I set my binder on the table and opened to the first tab. My name is Caleb Morgan. I own the land where the wall sits. I am not a member of Aspen Creek Meadows HOA. The $600 fee has no legal basis against my ranch, but that is not the dangerous part. Denise looked down, smiling faintly. I lifted the certified easement. This wall was built after the 1965 Silver Fork flood under county authorization. The recorded purpose was flood diversion and downstream protection. One board member leaned forward. His nameplate read, Parker. I handed copies to the clerk. The Aspen Creek Meadows subdivision file acknowledges this wall as an existing upstream diversion feature. Their own drainage approval depended on it remaining functional. That got movement from the HOA rows. A few heads turned toward Denise. She stood quickly. That is an interpretation. It is a certified county record, Mason said. The chairwoman raised a hand. Mr. Reed, you'll have your opportunity. I moved to the old maps. Before the wall, Silver Fork crossed east through this channel. I pointed to the blue line. That channel runs under what is now the Aspen Creek Clubhouse, lower walking trail, and at least 17 residential lots. Grant Hollis stood. There is no evidence of current active channel risk. I looked at him. Did you model spring runoff after a partial breach? He blinked. This is a preliminary drainage matter. Did you model it? No. Did you review the 1965 easement? He adjusted his tie. I reviewed materials provided by the complainant. Then you reviewed Denise Whitaker's complaint and not the county record. The room went still. Denise's face hardened. Mr. Morgan is trying to distract from the fact that his obstruction creates standing water and community risk. No, I said. I'm trying to stop this county from cutting a hole in the only thing keeping your subdivision out of the old riverbed. That was the line that should have ended it. Instead, Denise laughed, soft at first, then just loud enough for her people. Listen to him, she said, turning toward the board. Now the whole neighborhood is going to wash away because he does not want to pay $600. A few people chuckled. Not all. Enough. Heat moved up my neck, but I kept my hands flat on the binder. Mason stood. The Morgan Ranch requests that no action be taken until a certified independent hydrological review is performed, including historic channel analysis and conflict of interest disclosure regarding High Meadow Development YA LLC. Brent's head snapped up. Denise stepped back to the microphone. That is defamatory and irrelevant. It is directly relevant, Mason said. If any party funding this complaint benefits from changing floodplain classification downstream, the chairwoman's face tightened. We are not here today to litigate development rumors. They are not rumors, Mason said. We can produce filings. But the county attorney whispered to the board, and I knew before the chairwoman spoke that caution had already lost to procedure. After 20 minutes behind closed doors, they returned. The chairwoman read from a prepared sheet. Pending further review, the county issues a temporary restoration directive requiring Mr. Morgan to open a 40-foot section of the river wall within 30 days to allow natural flow observation and updated drainage assessment. Mason rose. Madam Chair, that order risks immediate downstream harm. Your objection is noted. I looked at Denise. She did not smile this time. She looked relieved. That scared me more. Outside, Mason stopped me beside my pickup. We appeal today, he said. But temporary orders like this move faster than common sense. I looked toward the west, where Silver Fork cut through my land beyond the cottonwoods. If they make me open it, I said, I'll open it clean. Mason studied me. Meaning, every warning in writing, every photo time-stamped, every stone documented. If they want to teach the river a lesson, I'm making sure the river knows who asked. Across the parking lot, Denise walked past with Brent. Her residents followed her like a parade. She did not look back. The county thought it had ordered a test. Denise thought she had won. But an old river does not care what a board votes on. And in 30 days, they were going to find out why my father built that wall in the first place. Mason filed the appeal before lunch. By supper, he called me with the answer I already felt coming. The county would review it, but the temporary directive stayed in place. 40 feet of wall had to be opened within 30 days, or the county could send its own contractor and bill me for the work. Caleb, Mason said, we can fight the order. We cannot ignore it. I know. You understand what happens if you refuse? They make me the villain. Exactly. I looked through the kitchen window at the cottonwoods marking the bend. Then I won't refuse. The next morning, I hired a contractor named Dean Sutter, a local excavation man who had dug half the stock ponds in Mesa County and knew better than to ask too many questions before coffee. He met me at the river wall with his yellow excavator on a flatbed and a county observer standing nearby with a tablet. Dean studied the stones for a long time. You sure you want me cutting that? He asked. No. He glanced at the county truck. But you've got to. That's right. Denise arrived 10 minutes later. She parked beside the road in her white SUV and stepped out with Brent. He wore a vest too clean for a riverbank and kept looking at the low ground east of the subdivision like he was already seeing cabin lights there. Sheriff Alvarez came too, not because anyone called him, because Mason had sent him a copy of the appeal and the order, and Tom knew what a bad day smelled like before it started. Denise walked up to the fence line. I hope we can all appreciate this as a positive step. I set a tripod in the grass and aimed my phone at the wall. State your name for the record if you want to be part of it. Her smile slipped. Excuse me? I'm recording the county-ordered alteration of recorded flood infrastructure on my property. The county observer looked up fast. Mason, standing beside me with a folder under one arm, added, Every person present may identify themselves voluntarily. Otherwise, please remain outside the work zone. Denise took one step back. Brent muttered something I could not hear. Dean climbed into the excavator. The engine turned over with a diesel growl that rolled through my ribs. I walked to the wall and put my hand on the first stone marked for removal. It was flat, dark, and worn smooth where water had licked it for decades. My father had reset that stone after the 1984 runoff. I remembered him kneeling in mud, sleeves rolled up, telling me the river was not evil. It just took the easiest path. I stepped away. Dean lowered the bucket. The first scrape of steel against stone made Ruth Bell turn her head. I had not seen her arrive, but there she was by the fence, hat pulled low, arms crossed. She did not speak. She did not need to. The first stone came loose at 9:22, I photographed it. The second came out at 9:26. I photographed that one too. By noon, we had 10 feet open. Water pressed through the gap in thin brown fingers, testing the exposed dirt. Dean worked carefully, slower than he charged me for, setting each stone on a tarp I had laid on higher ground. I numbered them with orange paint. Mason logged the time. The county observer said nothing and typed constantly. Denise grew impatient. "This seems excessive," she called. "It's just a partial opening." I turned. "Then you won't mind the record being complete," Brent answered before she could. "Nobody is disputing your right to take pictures, Mr. Morgan." Mason looked at him. "Good. Then nobody will object when we attach them to the appeal." Brent's jaw tightened. At 3:40, the last section gave way. 40 feet of old wall lay open. Silver Fork pushed through the cut. Not hard. Not yet. The water curled around the exposed bank and spread into a shallow sheet across the grass before slipping back toward the main channel. The county observer walked down, took a video, and said, "Directive satisfied." Mason asked, "Will your report note that Mr. Morgan complied under protest?" The man hesitated. Mason handed him a letter. "It will now." Denise folded her arms. Maybe now the county can finally see what natural flow looks like. I looked at the water moving through the gap. "This isn't natural flow." She laughed. "Then what is it?" "A door." Nobody spoke after that. For 3 days, nothing happened. The river stayed inside its banks. The opened gap ran shallow. HOA residents walked the trail and took pictures. Denise posted a newsletter calling the wall opening a victory for community water justice. She included a photo of herself by the clubhouse, smiling under a banner that read, "River Freedom Weekend." Mason forwarded it to me with one line. "Save this." I did. On the third evening, I sat at the kitchen table with Annie's mug near my hand and the numbered stone log in front of me. The house was quiet. Too quiet. My phone buzzed. It was Ruth. "Caleb," she said, "my cows are up against the north fence." I stood. Cattle move before men admit the weather has changed. I walked outside. The air smelled wet, though no rain had fallen yet. Far up in the dark, the mountains still held snow. Down by the bend, Silver Fork sounded different. Not louder, hungrier. I stood on the porch until the sound crawled under my skin. Silver Fork was still hidden behind the cottonwoods, but I could feel the change in it. The river had found the opened gap, tested it for 3 days, and now the high country was sending down the weight that made tests become consequences. I went back inside and called Mason. He answered like he had been waiting. "What changed?" "River tone." That is not a legal phrase. It was to my father. There was a pause. Then Mason said, "Then we write tonight." By midnight, my printer was running hot. Mason drafted the legal cover letter. I wrote the plain language warning myself, short enough that no county official could pretend not to understand it. Removal of the 40-foot section of the Silver Fork diversion wall may allow the river to reoccupy its historic eastern channel during spring runoff. The historic channel crosses the Aspen Creek Meadows lower lots, clubhouse grounds, and access road. Immediate review is requested. I attached the 1965 flood easement, the 1978 survey, the 1999 FEMA map, the Aspen Creek drainage appendix, Ruth Bell's photographs, and the time-stamped removal log. Mason added a formal notice that I had complied under protest and preserved all claims. At 7:30 the next morning, I was first in line at the post office. Certified mail went to the county board, the county attorney, the state water office, FEMA floodplain review, Sheriff Tom Alvarez, Denise Whitaker, and every Aspen Creek Meadows board member. Then, after Mason told me it mattered morally, even if it did not matter legally, I sent copies to every lower lot homeowner whose house sat inside the old channel. The clerk stacked the green receipts in front of me. "You starting a lawsuit?" she asked. "No," I said, trying to prevent one. By afternoon, Denise had already heard. She called while I was fixing a loose gate chain near the upper pasture. "You mailed panic letters to my residence?" she said. "I mailed records. You scared families, Mr. Morgan." "No. I warned them. About a disaster you invented because the county made you comply?" I looked down toward the river road. The opened wall was out of sight, but the sound carried in pulses through the trees. "Denise, if you have any sense left, cancel your River Freedom weekend." Her laugh was sharp. "So you did read the newsletter?" "I saved it." "Good. Save this too. Aspen Creek Meadows will not be bullied by a rancher who thinks mud and old rocks are a legal system." "No," I said, "but certified mail is." She hung up. The newsletter hit inboxes that evening. Mason forwarded it before I saw it. President's update. Community water victory. Denise called my warning letters fear-based retaliation. She announced that the clubhouse would host River Freedom Weekend on Saturday, with coffee, trail tours, and a presentation by Grant Hollis about restoring healthy waterways. At the bottom was a photo of the opened gap. The caption read, "Nature wins." I printed it and put it in the binder. At 8:14 that night, my phone rang again. The caller ID said Mesa County Engineering. "Caleb Morgan?" a woman asked. "This is Caleb. My name is Dana Miles, county engineer." I stood straighter without meaning to. "I know who you are. I reviewed the packet you sent. Not officially yet. Personally." "That sounds careful." "It has to be." I waited. She exhaled. "Your flood model is right." The house went quiet around me. Dana continued. "I pulled the archived topographic layers. The old channel is still there, filled in places, landscaped in others, but there. If runoff peaks hard enough, the river has a path. Then stop the order. I can't stop what has already been complied with. I can recommend emergency mitigation. I can file an internal memo, but the board will need observable evidence to reverse itself quickly." "You mean the river has to prove what the paperwork already did?" She did not answer right away. When she did, her voice was lower. "I don't like it either." I looked at Annie's mug on the table, then at the binder growing thicker beside it. "Denise is holding an event at the clubhouse Saturday. I saw the newsletter. Tell the county to send someone. I already requested a monitor." Dana. "Yes? If the water moves east, it will move fast." "I know," she said. "Keep your phone on." After the call, I walked outside. Rain began a few minutes later, tapping the tin roof of the equipment shed, soft at first. The kind of rain most people sleep through, the kind my father never did. I checked the river gauge before bed. It had risen 6 inches since dusk. At 11:47, Ruth called. "My north pasture's wet." At 12:16, Sheriff Alvarez texted, "Got your packet. I'm keeping a unit near Aspen Creek Saturday." At 12:38, Mason sent one line, "Do not leave your records in the low house." I moved the binder, Annie's mug, the old photographs, and the steel file box into my pickup and parked it on the upper drive. By 1:05, the rain was no longer tapping. It was drumming. I stood at the porch rail and listened to Silver Fork through the dark. The river was louder now, yes, but that was not what worried me. What worried me was the rhythm underneath it. The bend was no longer holding a line, and somewhere downstream, Denise Whitaker was preparing a celebration. By dawn, the rain had thinned to a gray mist, but the damage was already moving downhill. I drove to the bend with my headlights on, binder locked in the truck box, phone mounted to the dash recording. The cattle were bunched against the upper fence, facing away from the river. Animals do not need county maps to know when land is changing. Silver Fork looked wrong. Not wild. Not yet. Wrong. The main current still pressed south where the wall remained. But through the 40-foot opening, a second tongue of water pushed east across the grass. It slid over the old channel like a hand finding a buried scar. Brown water curled around sage roots, lifted dry leaves, and carried them toward Aspen Creek meadows. I called Dana Miles. "It's moving," I said. "How much?" "Enough to follow the old line. I'm on my way." Then I called Sheriff Alvarez. "Tom, tell your unit near Aspen Creek to watch the clubhouse road. You seeing water?" "I'm seeing memory." He did not ask what I meant. "I'll move people." At 8:30, Denise posted her first photo from River Freedom weekend. Someone forwarded it to me before I reached the upper pasture gate. Denise stood on the clubhouse deck holding a paper coffee cup, Grant Hollis beside her, residents smiling under a banner that said, "Restoring Silver Fork Together." Behind them, the grass was damp, not flooded. Damp enough that anyone who knew the land would have looked twice. Denise did not look twice. At 9:12, Dana arrived at my ranch gate in a county truck and followed me down to the bend. She got out without a jacket, rain spotting her county shirt, and walked straight to the opening. The water had doubled in width. Dana stared at it. "This is the old channel." "Yes." She pulled up a map on her tablet, then looked east. Her face changed in a way that told me the engineer had just beaten the bureaucrat inside her. "I'm issuing an emergency memo," she said. "Will they listen?" "They will when the road floods." By noon, the water crossed the Aspen Creek walking trail. I know because Sheriff Alvarez sent me the photo. A clean sheet of brown water over stamped concrete. HOA residents stood on the clubhouse porch, confused, still holding paper plates. Grant Hollis had one pant leg soaked to the knee. At 12:18, Denise called me. I let it ring once, then answered. "Mr. Morgan," she said. Her voice had lost its polish. "There's water on the trail." "I know. This is from your property." "No, Denise. This is from the river. You need to close that opening." "The county ordered it opened. You know how to stop it." I looked at the gap. Water shouldered through it now, stronger each minute, carrying foam and broken twigs east. "I warned you in writing. This is not the time for that." "No," I said. "It was the time for that when you got the certified letter." She inhaled sharply. For a second, I thought she might threaten me again. Then someone shouted in the background. Her voice dropped. "The water is coming toward the clubhouse. Get everyone uphill, now. No one drives through moving water. Call 911 and listen to Sheriff Alvarez. You have equipment. You have tractors." I closed my eyes once. I had every reason to let her sit with her own decision for one more minute. But Ruth's words came back to me. People forget what they didn't suffer through. They were about to suffer plenty without me adding to it. "I'm on my way," I said. I grabbed my keys. By the time I reached Aspen Creek meadows, water was spreading across the lower lawn in shining sheets. The pretty Riverview windows reflected a river that had stopped caring about views. Residents stood in clusters, arguing, filming, asking Denise what was happening. She stood near the clubhouse steps, pale now, phone in one hand, HOA badge still clipped to her jacket. Sheriff Alvarez was already there, directing cars toward the upper road. Dana Miles was kneeling by a storm drain, measuring flow depth with a rod. She looked up when my truck rolled in towing the stock trailer. "Caleb," Tom called, "lower drive is going under. I can move people from the first 17 lots." Denise hurried toward me. "You need to fix this." I stepped down from the truck. No, Denise. I need to help your residents. Fixing comes after the water stops. A woman in a red raincoat turned on Denise. You said his letters were scare tactics. Denise looked at her, then at me, then at the water now curling around the clubhouse sign. Silver Fork River Access, HOA Managed Community Feature. The current hit the signpost and shook it. Nobody laughed this time. At 4:06, the lower road disappeared. At 4:37, water reached the first driveways. At 5:20, Denise called my name from the clubhouse porch, but I was already loading an elderly couple into Ruth Bell's old flatbed. Ruth had driven in behind me with blankets, thermoses, and the grim efficiency of a woman who had seen this valley flood before. The river had turned, not in anger, not in revenge, just back toward where it had always known how to go. And as the sky lowered over Aspen Creek meadows, the same people who had raised their hands against me started climbing into my trailer to get uphill. I made 6 trips before dark. First came the Halversons from Lot 12, both in their 70s, soaked to the waist and carrying a shoebox of medicine. Then a young mother with 2 kids and a dog that would not stop shaking. Then 3 men who had laughed at Denise's newsletter 2 days earlier, and now would not look me in the eye as they climbed over my trailer gate. I did not ask for apologies. There was no time. Ruth Bell turned her barn into a shelter before anyone told her to. She laid blankets over hay bales, set coffee on a workbench, and wrote names on a feed store notepad as families came in. Sheriff Alvarez radioed road closures from the barn door. Dana Miles worked from the hood of her county truck, rain dripping off her sleeves while she marked flood depth on a tablet. At 7:10, the clubhouse lost power. At 7:26, the lower access road buckled at the culvert. At 7:40, Dana looked at her screen and said the words that changed the fight. It followed your map. Mason had just arrived, boots muddy, briefcase wrapped in a trash bag. He stepped closer. Say that again. Dana pointed to the old FEMA overlay on her tablet. The water didn't spread randomly. It reoccupied the historic Eastern Channel, the same line Caleb documented, the same line in the 1965 file. Mason looked at me. That was not triumph in his eyes. It was ammunition. Denise stood 20 feet away under the barn awning, wrapped in one of Ruth's quilts, her hair flattened by rain. Brent was beside her, speaking hard into his phone. Grant Hollis had disappeared sometime after the clubhouse lawn went under. A resident named Linda Park stepped toward Denise, holding a printed copy of my certified warning letter in a plastic bag. You told us this was scare tactics, she said. Denise's mouth opened, but no words came. Another man lifted his phone. You said the wall was blocking natural flow. Donna looked up from the truck hood. The wall was preventing historic flow from entering occupied lots. That sentence landed harder than a shout. Brent snapped his phone shut. This is not the place for technical blame. Mason turned toward him. No, Mr. Whitaker. This is exactly the place where the technical blame starts. Brent's eyes narrowed. You're not my attorney. No, Mason said. I represent Caleb Morgan, and tomorrow morning we are filing for emergency injunctive relief, preservation of evidence, and a full investigation into High Meadow Development LLC's role in funding the complaint that caused this. Denise looked at Brent. For the first time since I had known her, she looked like she had just learned something after everyone else. Sheriff Alvarez stepped between them before Brent could answer. Everyone keeps their distance. Tonight is about getting people safe. The paperwork can bleed tomorrow. But paperwork had already started bleeding. At 8:30, Dana sent her emergency report to the county board. Mason made sure I was copied. The subject line was plain. Silver Fork diversion removal. Immediate downstream impact consistent with historic channel reoccupation. Attached were my maps, Dinah's field measurements, photographs of water crossing the HOA trail, and time-stamped video of the opened wall. At 9:15, Mason sent his first legal notice to the county attorney, to the HOA board, to Brent Whitaker, to Grant Hollis, to High Meadow Development LLC. Preserve all emails, invoices, contracts, meeting notes, text messages, hydrological reports, and development inquiries related to Silver Fork River, Aspen Creek Meadows drainage, and the Morgan Ranch diversion wall. He showed me before sending it. I read the last line twice. Failure to preserve evidence may result in sanctions. Is that enough? I asked. For tonight, Mason said. Tomorrow, we ask a judge to freeze everything. Outside, water kept moving through Aspen Creek Meadows. It carried mulch from Denise's clubhouse flower beds, a plastic chair, someone's welcome mat, and one of the River Freedom Weekend signs. The sign turned once in the current and lodged against Ruth's lower fence. Nature wins. Ruth saw it and shook her head. That woman should have listened to the old maps. At 10:04, Denise walked over to me. Her face was pale in the barn light. Caleb. I turned. My residents need help with the upper lots now. The water is moving behind the second row. I know, I said. Tom already sent me. Her chin trembled once from cold or fear, I did not know. I didn't think it would do this. No, I said. You didn't think you needed to know. That hurt her. I saw it. But I did not have time to care. I climbed into the tractor and drove back toward the flooded road. Sheriff Alvarez rode beside me on the step, one hand gripping the frame, radio in the other. Headlights cut through rain and found the water where the pavement used to be. Behind us, in Ruth's barn, the evidence was no longer just in my binder. It was on Dana's tablet. It was in Mason's legal notices. It was in every resident's wet shoes, and by morning, the next county meeting would not be about my $600 fee. It would be about who opened the river, who profited from it, and who had been warned before the first drop crossed the trail. The meeting was held 4 days later in the emergency operations room, not the public hearing room. That told me the county understood the difference now. No podium, no polished slides, just wet maps, damage reports, attorneys, engineers, and people too tired to perform. Denise sat at the far end of the table with Brent beside her. She looked smaller without the HOA audience behind her. Brent looked angry, which was worse for him. Angry men talk when they should be quiet. Mason placed my binder on the table. Dana Miles placed her emergency report beside it. Sheriff Alvarez placed his incident logs on top. Then the county attorney read the timeline out loud. The $600 fee, the HOA complaint, the temporary directive, my certified warnings, Denise's newsletter, the River Freedom Weekend, Dana's flood measurements, the water crossing the trail exactly where my maps said it would. Nobody interrupted. When the attorney reached High Meadow Development LLC, Brent finally spoke. That company has no relevance to drainage. Mason opened a folder. Then you won't mind explaining why your company requested preliminary review for river cabins on the same floodplain you were trying to reclassify. Brent's face hardened. Mason slid another document forward. Or why Grant Hollis's consulting invoice was paid through a pass-through account connected to your broker. Denise turned toward Brent slowly. That was the moment the room changed. Not because I won, because she realized she had not known the whole game either. The county issued 3 orders that afternoon. The first rescinded the temporary directive and suspended any further action against my ranch. The second referred High Meadow Development LLC, Brent Whitaker, and Grant Hollis for investigation over conflict of interest and misrepresentation in a public drainage matter. The third required Aspen Creek Meadows HOA to fund emergency stabilization of the riverbank until permanent restoration could be approved. Then the county attorney looked at Denise. The $600 community drainage assessment is invalid as applied to Mr. Morgan. It will be withdrawn in writing. Denise nodded once. She did not look at me. 2 weeks later, the full public meeting happened at the school gym because too many residents wanted in. Folding chairs filled the basketball court. People who had slept in Ruth Bell's barn sat with insurance folders in their laps. The River Freedom signs were gone. In their place were enlarged copies of my certified warning letters. Denise resigned before the vote began. She read from a printed statement, voice flat, hands shaking just enough to show. She apologized to residents for errors in judgment. She did not apologize to me. I did not need it. Brent was not there. His attorney had advised against it. The new interim HOA president, Linda Park, stood at the microphone and made the motion. Aspen Creek Meadows would rescind the $600 fee. The HOA would contribute to rebuilding the 40-foot section of the Silver Fork diversion wall. The lower lots would be marked permanently on all HOA disclosures as part of the historic flood channel. The old 1965 easement would be recognized in every future drainage plan. All in favor? Linda asked. Hands went up across the room. Almost all of them. The same hands that had once voted against me. I stayed in the back beside Ruth and Sheriff Alvarez. Mason stood on my other side, quiet for once. Linda looked toward me. Mr. Morgan, would you like the restored wall named for your family? I thought about my father's handwriting on the back of that old photograph. This is what saves them. Then I thought about the Halversons climbing into my trailer, the children wrapped in Ruth's blankets, Denise standing pale while the water took the clubhouse lawn. No, I said. Name it for the families who came home. The room went silent. Then Ruth Bell reached over and squeezed my hand. The rebuild took 6 weeks. Dean Sutter returned with his excavator, and this time nobody celebrated when the first stone moved. Dana supervised the engineering. Mason filed the permanent easement recognition. The HOA paid its share under county order. I placed my father's old stones back where they belonged, one by one with modern reinforcement hidden beneath them. By late summer, Silver Fork had settled back against the cottonwood roots. The clubhouse sign was replaced with a warning marker. Historic flood channel. No alteration without county approval. Months later, I sat on my porch with Annie's blue mug on the rail beside me. The evening light hit the river bend, and the water moved south again, quiet but not tame. Denise thought paper could move water. Brent thought profit could erase a floodplain. The county thought a temporary order was safer than a hard truth. But truth has a current of its own. Justice did not come from revenge. It came from records, restraint, and a river that remembered where it belonged.
If there is one lesson in Caleb Moran's story, it's this: when something tries to bury the truth under meeting, freeze an official-looking paper, don't answer with noise. As a with Ruth, Caleb did not win because he was louder. He stood steady because he kept the easements, the maps, the certified letters, the photos, and the history of land in order. And when the river moved, every record he had set had shown what had really happened. That mattered in real life too. This is not just paper. A boundary is not just a line. A family place, a range road, a river wall, and on-fence spots. Those things carry work, memory, and responsibility. Sometimes standing your ground means staying calm long enough for the chill to catch up. If you ever had to defend your home, your land, your family work, or just your own good name, type yes in the comments. And if you ever deal with an HOA that's pushed too far, rub the word justice so folks know they are not alone. And if stories like this speak to you, story about land, dignity, quiet courage, and people who find the right way, subscribe and stay with us. There's another HOA range story coming next.